Welcome to Trudge the Road. Trudge the Road, sponsored by Caron Treatment Centers. Caron's a nonprofit leading provider of drug and alcohol addiction treatment with treatment facilities in Pennsylvania, Florida, Texas, and offices in Bermuda, Boston, New York, Philadelphia, and Washington, D.C. They can be reached by calling 1-800-854-6023, or you can go to their website, caron.org. That's CARON.org. We're your hosts. I'm Rich, a recovered drug addict.
My name is Jerry, and I'm a sober alcoholic.
Jerry, let's start the show off the way we always start the show off, and that is you tell us, why do we do this show?
Trudge the Road is a radio program which is dedicated to folks like us who suffer from the disease of addiction to alcohol and to drugs. And every bit is important. Family members and friends, you suffer tremendously, and we know that you have a lot of questions. Our goal here is to do what we can to answer as many of those questions as we can, and with the grace of the good Lord above, be able to bring a solution to this incredible dilemma, the disease of addiction.
All right, a couple of things that programming notes, if you will. We have a YouTube channel. You can catch all of our shows there. It is youtube.com/Trudge the Road Radio, all one word, or just type Trudge the Road Radio in the search engine. Facebook page, same deal, Trudge the Road Radio in the search engine. Twitter, oh yeah, we got that too. It's TTR Show. And of course, our website is trudgetheroadradio.com, where you can send Jerry an email, myself an email, or Matt the producer an email as well.
Awesome, Matt the producer.
Yes, awesome, Matt the producer. Is that what his email address is?
Which
awesome,
should be.
Matt the producer. We should do that. Speaking of awesome, Allison's coming up here in just a little bit. She will be our guest today, and she's got one heck of a story.
She really does. It's fantastic. It's good to hear from women in recovery who really do what they can to help other women in recovery, and she certainly is the captain of that boat. We're proud of her and anxious to talk to Allison coming up in a couple of minutes.
All right. We're going to talk a little bit about why alcoholics do what alcoholics do, and you could say drug addicts as well.
Sure.
I mean, you have the non-addicted person that will get drunk and get all silly and have some sort of episode and go, whoo, you know what? I don't think I'm going to be doing that again. Or somebody goes out and has an experience on tequila and say, you know what? I think I'm done with that. I'm just going to drink a couple of beers anytime I go out in the future. Or you have people like us, Jerry, the thinking process that goes behind some of the things that we were doing when we were out there really doesn't even correlate with what the non-alcoholic person
Well, it's
does.
because you use those two words, thinking process. They don't exist. If you look at the alcoholic, the non-alcoholic, the non-alcoholic, when they drink, will stop because they feel like they're losing control. You know, the alcoholic is just the opposite. When we drink, we feel like we are gaining control.
I know that you have, just recently we were talking, you know, you and I talk pretty much on a daily basis, but you were telling me the story about going out with someone and you had ordered a couple of drinks. You had an iced tea or something, but this person was on their second beer.
Yeah, I was in a restaurant in Chicago, and we went in. It was going to be a great dinner, and the guy I'm with, is not an alcoholic. When we got there, the reservation, they were late. They couldn't seat us right away, and the maitre d' just felt terrible. So he said, "Please sit in the bar. Let me buy you a drink." And so I did. I got a Coke, and I knew he wasn't an alcoholic because he got like a whiskey skipper, you know. And he drank it, and then they just brought him another one, didn't they? Just brought him another one. And about halfway through that drink, our table was ready, and we went into the restaurant, and the cocktail waitress came by and said, you know, "Can I get you another whiskey skipper?" And he looked up at her and he said, "No, thank you. I'm beginning to feel it." You know, now to the alcoholic, that makes absolutely no sense.
Absolutely, you're sitting there going, "All right,
it's starting to work. Keep going.
This is what we're supposed to be feeling."
Right. Again, and what we would feel in that particular sense is a sense of relief. As a matter of fact, in the doctor's opinion in our text, Dr. Silkworth, just a brilliant man who, you know, thank God when he came into Bill's life at the time he did. But basically, he said that men and women drink essentially because they like the effects produced by alcohol. That's why we drink. We like it. Now, for us, the sensation is so elusive that while we admit it is injurious, and I'm directly quoting Dr. Silkworth here, we cannot, after a time, differentiate the truth from the false. To us, the alcoholic life seems to be the normal one. We're normal when we're drinking. We are restless, irritable, and discontent unless we can again experience the sense of ease and comfort which comes at once by taking a few drinks. Drinks we see others again taking with impunity. They don't have any problem. Now, after we've succumbed to the disease, but with us, what happens is called the phenomenon of craving. And that's what develops. And I think that that is a really difficult thing for people to understand who don't have this disease, the phenomenon of craving and what craving is to us and why we act the way we do to get the thing that we want is even if it's injurious or insane. It's simply this. Right now you're craving something and you don't even know you're craving it. You're craving air. Now, if I were to slip a plastic bag over your head, you'd realize real quickly how much you're craving air. Now, the exact same thing happens to the alcoholic or the addict, is our brain is telling us that if we don't get this drink or this drug, we are going to die. I'm going to repeat that. That is what the brain is doing to the addicted person. It is telling us if we don't get the heroin, if we don't get the opiate, if we don't get the alcohol, if we don't get the meth, we're going to die. It's not a question now of getting high or partying, anything that, it's survival. And that message is clear. That's why we would do things that are so completely bipolar to our character. Steal, lie, do whatever to be able to get what we need to, as far as our brain is considered, stay alive. And that is a phenomenon of craving. And it's, again, very difficult to understand if you don't have this disease.
No, that is a brilliant analogy. Like as if someone took air away from you. That feeling that you have when you can't breathe and suddenly your eyes start darting side to side and you're, oh my God, I got to get some air.
That's it.
That's exactly how I used to feel when I would run out of dope. Exactly how I'd feel. Even though I knew that I should not be doing this. Say I had a meeting coming up or I had to go to work the next day. Rich, really, give it a rest tonight, get a night. No, I could not get a night's sleep. I needed the dope. It was the only way I could continue to function. It's the only way I could continue to have a conversation. It's the only way I could get out of the house. It's the only way I could pick up the telephone. It's the only way I could go to work. It's the only way I could survive.
Because it's just as Dr. Silkwood said, it made you normal. It makes us normal. You know, and when we get to the point where we're at the end, we're functioning off of three emotions, and that's it. Elation, anxiety, and despair. Those are the only things that we feel. And I'll give you the example, and people out there who are in recovery and are addicted people will understand this. Again, it's elation, anxiety, and despair. Here's the example. We got the dope. Oh, elation, I feel great. The dope is starting to run out. Here comes the anxiety. The dope is gone. Despair. So the only thing that's going to cure despair is that elation again. So you see the cycle now. We just continue to repeat that cycle because that despair to us is death, you know. And what has happened is that we at this stage respond to life emotionally. And alcoholics and drug addicts are two things that are that absolute facts, part of the pathology. We are immature and we are perfectionists. That is a fact for every one of us. And, you know, when I first heard the news that I was immature, my response was, I'm not, you know, and a perfectionist. I'm not a perfectionist, but as I've said before, I do have a certain flair for everything being the exact way it's supposed to be, or I do get a little bit cranky.
Well, now, I noticed one thing when you were giving that analogy about how we feel. The one key word that you focused in on was emotion. And emotion overrides any intellectual thought whatsoever that we have.
Exactly. And you know, we could take it one step further and label what emotion is that we're functioning off of. It's our ego. And you know that in the alcoholic. Egotism is the anesthetic that dulls the pain of stupidity. We'll put it that way. But that is what we do. And the behavior ramifications can be phenomenal. And, you know, one of the beauties of Alcoholics Anonymous is what my daughter has brought to my attention. Chelsea grew up in AA. You know, she's an adult now, but when she was with me and as a child, she was going to AA meetings because that's where I was. And what amazes her the most is our ability to laugh and sometimes laugh hysterically at the most tragic of situations, you know, and that's just such a big, because it was that ego that got us into those things. For example, even with her mother, and I shared this with Beth, the producer, who was at my house trying to fix my computer the other day, and this is kind of how we function. I'm going back many, many years, like 1980, and I was working on the radio at the time in Denver. And I had gotten a ratings bonus of $1,500. Now, in 1980, $1,500, that was half a Toyota. You know, that was some pretty serious money. And it was just handed to me at 8 o'clock in the morning. Congratulations, you did well. Did I buy that half a Toyota? Did I think about putting a down payment on a house? No, I'm on the horn to Donna. We're going to Vegas. You know, got money, go to Las Vegas. And of course, you know, there's no planning involved in this. I'm not thinking. I'm just experiencing the feeling, the emotion, the excitement, the booze. Let's get it together. So in Denver, you know, there's a flight leaving for Vegas every 20 minutes, and this is again in 1980 when you could pull up at the airport, half drunk out of your mind, pay in cash, hop on and go.
Right.
It was easy to travel, and so I told Donna, just throw some stuff in a bag. We'll buy things when we get there. We got to get to Vegas ASAP. And so she did, and I put together a couple of things, grabbed her, and of course now it's maybe noon, so my blood alcohol levels are probably about 2.7, 2.8. We're working on it, and get to the airport, and we get to the terminal to get on the airplane, and we're separated because we just bought tickets there. She's sitting somewhere else on the plane. And so I sat down and again started just drinking. I had a little problem with blackouts. And a blackout is alcoholic amnesia, if you will, where you may be carrying on a conversation and maybe even not doing anything inappropriate, but have absolutely no recollection of it whatsoever. Well, all of a sudden, I come out of a blackout, and I'm on an airplane, and I'm not quite sure where I'm going on an airplane. And sitting next to me, to my left, is an Asian person, and to the right, another Asian person, who are both looking up at me like, what is the matter with this guy? I'm drooling by that time. Well, I'm on an airplane with two Asian people. I'm, oh, God. Where, catch my, here comes that panic attack.
I'm going to Beijing.
So I grabbed that magazine, and I started thumbing through, and there's all these ads for Vegas, and it starts coming back. Oh, Vegas, the money. That's right. Going to Vegas. Calm down. Cocktail, please. And in those days, too, if you were paying for them, they'd serve them to you. It didn't make any difference. And we get to Vegas. Now, part of that blackout is it slipped my mind that Donna came. And I remember walking off the plane, and she's standing there, and I'm going, oh, hey! Oh, what a surprise! I wish I was making this up. I'm not. I will have her sometime come here and tell you the exact same story. So, and Donna, a beautiful, beautiful girl, and blonde, and just so attractive, and we're in Vegas and got a pocket full of money, and bang, we check into the hotel, we hit in the casino, we're drinking, we're having a big time, and that evening, we need to take a little rest here before we resume to the activities. Donna is pretty much blind without her contact lenses. Again, this is 1980, and had forgotten to bring the little contact lens container, so she popped her contacts out, just put them in a glass of water. I get thirsty at night. Yes. And in the middle of the night, and I even thought to myself, isn't she the sweetest girl leaving me a glass of water? And I drank her contacts. and you couldn't just call lens crafters in those days. It didn't exist. You had to go through an ophthalmologist. So now it's Saturday in Las Vegas. Friday, I'm in Las Vegas with this beautiful blonde on my arm going to all the casinos. Saturday, I'm with Stevie Wonder. She can't see, and she literally having to hold my arm, and I'm having to guide her down, and I'm thinking, you are ruining my time. So I took her to this slot machine and sat her down and went and got one of those Kentucky Fried Chicken buckets full of nickels,
right,
and said, here you go, I'll be right over there. And what I meant by right over there was downtown. And selfishness and self-centeredness is the root of all of our problems. You see, now she wasn't part of my fun, so I'm just going to kind of exclude her. Well, when I finally get back, she's upset, and
I imagine so.
Yeah, and she wanted to go to the bathroom. I'd forgotten about. This is how selfish I am. I was wondering if the casino had one of those like seeing eye dogs that you can borrow just to get her to the ladies' room and back, because they've got everything else in a casino. But so anyway, she said, "No, I want to go up to the room," and I said, "All right, well, I'll push the elevator. It's the 26th floor. Just feel your way down 8 doorknobs, and that's our room." And that really upset her. So I thought, well, I guess I better go up and, sit down with her. And so I did. And she was, very upset and thought my behavior was terrible and that I didn't love her and I didn't care about her. And so I had to make that right. I absolutely had to make that right. And so I asked her to marry me. I did. Will you marry me? And that quieted her right down. She wasn't mad anymore at all, so let's go back down to the casino, And then again, you see, just functioning with complete emotion and that ego. And it was just tremendous. But that's what I was telling you with Chelsea, is that we all just laughed about that. And we just have this, tremendous gift that God has given us, is the ability to laugh at such tragic situations, and that's just such a part of getting better. And we are getting better here on Trudge the Road.
And I guess it's safe to say that the marriage didn't last very long after that.
No. But Donna's a good friend, and probably might be listening to this morning. If she is, I love you. Thank you very much for all you did for me.
Yeah, emotions over intellect is what we do as addicts, as opposed to the I over E. It's the E over I.
You got it down there, bro.
Scenario. Hey, Allison is coming up in just a few minutes, and she is a fantastic guest, and very excited to hear her story. Trudge the Road is sponsored by Caron Treatment Centers. Caron's a nonprofit leading provider of drug and alcohol addiction treatment. Caron specializes in men's and women's services, as well as young adult males and females, plus a relapse program and outpatient services. So if you're concerned about yourself or a loved one, call 1-800-854-6023, or you can go to their website, Caron.org. That's CARON.org. For Jerry, I'm Rich. This is Trudge the Road on the Trudge the Road Radio Network.
You're listening to Trudge the Road. Coming up, Jerry sits down and talks to Allison, an alcoholic and addict in recovery who tells her story of how she came to find herself in the rooms of AA. That's next on the Trudge the Road Radio Network.
There is a new face of recovery, and you see it in the pages of Renew Magazine and at RenewEveryday.com. Renew and RenewEveryday.com are changing the face of recovery for good. Each issue is filled with positive role models, life-affirming stories, encouragement, and ideas to help any life in recovery. Whether you're already enjoying an addiction-free life, have a loved one facing its challenges, or are considering recovery, Renew and RenewEveryday.com can support and inspire you. Join us. Check out RenewEveryday.com to learn more.
Hi, this is Rich, your co-host for the Trudge the Road radio program, and there's a question I get all the time, and that is, how do we catch prior episodes of Trudge the Road if we miss the radio show? And it's very simple. You just go to youtube.com and in the search engine, type in, without any spaces, Trudge the Road Radio, and all our shows will come up. We also invite you to like our Facebook page, which can be found by typing Trudge the Road Radio with spaces into the search engine. And thank you from Jerry and myself for listening to Trudge the Road.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Trudge the Road. Trudge the Road is sponsored by the Caron Treatment Centers. Caron is a nonprofit leading provider of drug and alcohol addiction treatment, with treatment facilities in the great states of Pennsylvania, Florida, and Texas, offices in Bermuda, Boston, New York, Philadelphia, and the nation's capital. They can be reached by calling 800-854-6023 or go to their website. It's loaded with great information. It's Caron.org, and that's spelled CARON.org. Trudge the Road is a radio program dedicated to folks who suffer from the disease of addiction to drugs and to alcohol. And every bit as important, family and friends, we know that you suffer tremendously. We know you have a lot of questions. Our goal here is to be able to answer some of those questions, and with the good grace of the Lord above, be able to bring a solution to this incredible dilemma, the disease of addiction. For those of you who are in recovery, if it wouldn't be too much to ask when you're at a meeting and they get to that area of the meeting where the non-related AA announcements are asked, if you'd bring up Trudge the Road and spread the news, we'd appreciate it. If you're listening on your local radio station, or, of course, you can catch all the episodes on YouTube. Just go to YouTube in the search engine, write Trudge the Road Radio is one word, Trudge the Road Radio. All the episodes will pop up and get a chance to listen to some of the great guests we've had. Tara Connor, John Hyatt, the list goes on and on. We're really excited about. And we have a wonderful guest here today, an old friend of mine. Allison is here, and Allison's been in recovery a long time, does a lot for the women in recovery and helping some people along. As a matter of fact, Peyton is here right now, one of her sponsees. We might have an opportunity to say hello. And you're just back from India, as a matter of fact, in the last, 24 hours?
Yes.
So your little jet lag going on?
Oh, yeah.
All right, we got you here. We got you here where you're going to be less vulnerable. All right. If you would, tell us just a little bit about what got you here into Alcoholics Anonymous. What got you? What is your story? And we're going to go from there and find out about the miracle of your recovery.
Thank you very much. I'm Allison. I am an alcoholic and a drug addict, and I also am codependent. So I've got they call me a double winner. I don't know. It's all good. The reason it's an honor to speak anytime I'm asked to speak for Alcoholics Anonymous, and it's an honor to be of service as well. My story is really not that unique. I thought I was unique, but I'm a garden variety alcoholic, and I tried any drug really was put in front of me at least once. And that's not really wasn't on my bucket list. As a young person, I really wanted to succeed. I had some aspirations. But early on, I decided to test and see, what alcohol could do for me. And really, it was to fit in originally. My first episode was with Colt 45 at 85 degrees. If anybody's ever drank Colt 45 at 85 degrees, it smells like a skunk and tastes worse. But what I realize now in hindsight, I tell my story in hindsight, because during it, I was just about chugging that beer, which I'd never done before, but I really wanted the attention. And so I chugged it down, and I drank for effect. And I always drank for effect. I did not drink for flavor. So for those of you who drink because it's a sexy martini, more bully for you, that just wasn't my story. And I got a lot of attention that day, and I went home and I went to the throne, as they say, and spent a lot of hours throwing up and being sick. And my mother, who's English and who is also an alcoholic. However, that's not my requirement. That's not why I'm an alcoholic, but she was. And she was basically saying that clean yourself up, and she asked my sister to help me and then come down to dinner. And her basic comment was, hey, just if you want to drink, just drink at home. Don't drink outside of the home. So I was like, this is great. I can start to plan drinking. And so from there, I didn't really progress. I was 14 years old in my first drink, but I did love the feeling and the effect. And I really, after I drank, the thing that really felt the best is I felt like I was in my own skin, because I always had this thing where I really was the center of the universe, and all you did was think about me and talk about me, and I really didn't feel like I fit in any clique. I would kind of jump from clique to clique, but with this group, you didn't really have to do too much to fit in. So my disease did not progress at that point, but I'll fast forward it to when I was got into high school. And at that point, I had gone through a year where I decided we moved, and I thought, great, I'm going to put all the bad memories behind me. And I'd only had one underage drinking, so I didn't have a lot of consequences. And I thought, oh, well, everybody has that, not a big deal. I got a fine and moved on. But at the new school, I was going to get A's and I was going to change my life. Well, I did. And I did do that for a year. And so I'm like, I got this thing. I don't have a problem. Until the following year when I met a guy, and, I went to his apartment, and I was always looking for the older guy, and I found him. And he had cases of Genesee stacked, and he was definitely the him I wanted to be with. And I started to drink, and the disease did progress. That year I, did not go to school, went to school about 50-some days. So the next year, basically, I went back to school to try to get back in school, because they said, if you're not going to come to school, we're going to you don't have to come back. We're going to expel you. And they did. And so I went back the following year, and I had found a new him and got pregnant. And I thought I really need to buckle down now and get with the program. And so my disease progressed to a point now I was just choosing a guy, and the guy was the addiction. And, being pregnant, I had to do something different. So I didn't want to drink during that time. But I am here to tell you that I did drink. And, I think any mother out there, if you hear me talking, I know you didn't want to drink either. But we do things that we don't want to do when we're under the influence of alcohol and we're an addict. Every cell in my body, I wanted to be a good mother, and I just couldn't. And I had that baby, and I did put it up for adoption. And, it was, now in hindsight, that was the best thing for that baby at this time. I graduated from high school, and wanted to go to college, was all lined up to go to college, but there was him. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, I can't leave him. He might go to another girl. And that's kind of just where this thing took me. At that time, my disease did start to progress because I did not go off to college. And I just started drinking. Every Friday, I would start drinking, and I ended on Sunday with no paycheck left and just trying to really get through Sunday to heal up to go through the week. So that progressed for a lot of years. And I would do things. I'll give you an example. I really thought I was a great daughter, believe it or not. And again, in hindsight, but my mom, she enabled me because she loved me. And even though she was an alcoholic, you never want to see your child drinking. And, and I've had that experience in an alcoholic way because it's very painful. So my mother would always want to help me, and she'd give me the keys to her car, or she'd say, okay, drop me off, pick me up. Well, my idea of picking my mom up was on, leave her during the day, and I'd say, well, I'll be back at 9 to pick you up from your job, and I didn't come back for 2 days. And then I would come back, and the car would be demolished on the one side the one time, and it's like the police came, and my mother and the police were there, so what happened? And I came out, and again, this is hindsight. I'm like, I absolutely said, I have no idea what happened to the car. the car is smashed up. And they said, well, come out and look. And the car was really demolished, and I was in a blackout. And I didn't know I was in blackouts all these years, but that's what it was. And the police officer and my mother stood there, and they said, look, we know you need help. Just, confess up. And I was just like, no way. I didn't do it. I have no idea who you're talking about did it. It definitely wasn't me. Somebody else did it. So the denial that I lived in and the delusion that I lived in were really starting to take a toll, because I knew I did it. I mean, who was I fooling? I knew I did it. And that was just one of the many things I would bring. I was like, mother's worst nightmare. The top 10 things you don't want your daughter to do. I did 20 top 10 things. I did 20 top things. So with me, it was, the end was when where it came, and I'll fast forward, I did get married. I did get off to a technical school and then to college because, as an alcoholic, I actually, one of my handicaps is I'm pretty smart. And I went to a vocational school, and they said, we'd like to give you a scholarship to go to a college. Now, most people without this illness would say, great, let me go to college and we'll get that done. 4 years in a private college. In year one, the bar on the corner looked so much more appealing than college. Mm-hmm. And that's where I rested. I rested my head there all the time. I'd be there till 2 a.m. And I thought I had it together. Here I am, 18, and I can get into the bar. And really, I destroyed the opportunity to finish college at that time. And it's interesting. Quick story is it was a Catholic college, and the nuns took me aside, and I was just so egotistical and so full of pride as they said, "Listen, stay, have the baby." And I was like mortified. I'm going to walk around campus pregnant and face everybody pregnant and not wed because I got pregnant again in there. And they said, and I knew that really. I wanted to drink, too. So it's like I've got all these things going on that I wanted myself well, but I had a safety line from God. They said, stay here. We'll help you. Have the baby. We'll help you bring up the baby. We'll make sure you have a place to stay and finish college. But no, I didn't. Instead, I went home, did the shotgun wedding, got married. And the ending of that was really, to fast forward to where I finally hit bottom, was that child was 4 years old. And that night, it was about a guy, and I drove about 50 miles and went down to a bar in the middle of the boondocks because I did a lot of that. At the end, my drinking wasn't fun. At first, it was a party. It was a lot of fun. So I wouldn't tell you that every day of my drinking was bad, but at that point, it had become really where it was me, my bottle, and my car. And I had driven like 50 miles to go to a bar because I don't want to miss the party either. So I would get to the party, drink until I was in blackout, and I drove 50 miles that night. Not 1 mile do I remember. I couldn't tell you. I know where I got to, and I know where I ended up, but I don't remember anything in between. So it's like God was not done with me. And I remember, ironically, one of my customers pulled me over. I had one moment of clarity, and they looked at me as I went around a corner in Lancaster, and they just kind of signaled me, pull over. And the next thing I remember is I was coming out of a blackout again. And so that was my bottom. The next morning, I went to jail. The police, they did the drunk test. And, of course, being arrogant, I wasn't going to take the breathalyzer, which instantly gave me a year without a license. And I went to jail and for the night, and it was embarrassing, really embarrassing. I hope they don't have the video. But it was, for me, a bottom. And not everybody goes to jail and has a DUI and has a bottom. But I'm going to tell you, for me, that was my bottom. And I'm really, really, really grateful for it because the next day I woke up and I really couldn't move. I got home because my ex-boyfriend, who was the guy who I was kind of tracked down that night during my drunken, I don't know what you want to, I guess stupor is what you want to call it. I don't know, my drunken driving stupor. But, I was going to go see him and tell him what I thought of him. But he came to pick me up with his girlfriend. And for a lot of years, I had a resentment. But you know what my sponsor said? She said, thank God he did pick you up. You should be grateful the fact he picked you up, Allison. Because at that point, you didn't have too many friends and there wasn't too many people you could call to give you a hand. Because I had burned so many bridges. Because if you didn't give me what I wanted when I wanted it, I was really not a nice person to you. So I woke up and what I realized the next morning is really not only did the DUI bring me to my knees, but, I never picked my son up from daycare. And that wasn't the kind of mother I wanted to be. And I couldn't put two and two together. I'd wake up and I made promises. I'm not going to drink today. I'm going to get sober. And I'm not going to behave the way I'm behaving. I mean, I hated me, obviously. And I got to this woman's house who took care of my son. And she just threw the phone book at me. And she said, I don't care who you call, but call somebody. And, I knew about this place called Detox that, when you get bad, like all my other friends, I wasn't in that category. I didn't really know what it was, but I knew that you go to Detox, which I knew enough that you dry out, but I didn't know anything about Alcoholics Anonymous. And so I called them and they said, well, listen, can you not drink for 2 hours? I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking about. Like, how I'm not going to drink for 2 hours at this point. And so in the meantime, the babysitter had gone out to my car, taken the last of the Jack Daniels in my car and pitched it. So here's really, my friends, a view. I always thought I wasn't like you and I wasn't that bad, but here's a woman who has a child who was brought up really by a good family. My mother was an alcoholic and my father was. It didn't make me an alcoholic, and they gave me everything I needed. They gave me food, clothing, shelter. And yeah, it wasn't perfect, but you know what? There was a lot of good in all of that. And the thing is that here I am rooting through the garbage pail just for one more sip. And that is really, to me, a real great picture of who I had become. Yet I wasn't like that bum and Skid Row people say about, but yeah, I was. I really was. And it's because I was powerless, but I thought I was controlling it to the bitter end. So that's just a real brief synopsis. And from there, I got really blessed. I was in detox, and they handed me a brochure saying, you need to go away to a rehab. And I'm like, how could I ever leave my son for 30 days? And they're like, well, you didn't even pick him up the other night. So, but that's how sick I am. I don't put two and two together. And by the grace of God, I did go to that rehab.
And that, really what you're describing is not unusual. People who are listening who may not understand this disease, the circumstances of your behavior are not unique to you, as they really are a commonality with people who have the disease. But there is good news ahead, I understand.
Yeah. So
All right. All right. We will want to find out about that. So stay tuned here. That's Allison. It gets good. Thank you very much for being so open. I appreciate that. And we'll be back to find out more here in just a minute on Trudge the Road, which is sponsored by Caron Treatment Centers. Caron is a nonprofit leading provider of drug and alcohol addiction treatment. Caron specializes in men's and women's services, as well as young adult males and females, plus a relapse program and outpatient services. If you are concerned about yourself or a loved one, call this number. There is someone who understands your pain on the other end of that line. It's 800-854-6023. The website for Caron is caron.org. That's CARON.org. We'll be back with Allison here in just a moment on Trudge the Road Radio.
You're listening to Trudge the Road. Coming up, Jerry continues his discussion with Allison and how her life has become manageable and how she now helps others suffering from this disease. That's next on the Trudge the Road Radio Network.
Hi, this is Rich, your co-host for the Trudge the Road radio program, and there's a question I get all the time, and that is, how do we catch prior episodes of Trudge the Road if we miss the radio show? And it's very simple. You just go to youtube.com and in the search engine, type in, without any spaces, Trudge the Road Radio, and all our shows will come up. We also invite you to like our Facebook page, which can be found by typing Trudge the Road Radio with spaces into the search engine. And thank you from Jerry and myself for listening to Trudge the Road.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Trudge the Road Radio on the Trudge the Road Radio Network. We are sponsored by the Caron Treatment Centers. We certainly do appreciate that. If you don't know, Caron is a nonprofit leading provider of drug and alcohol addiction treatment. With treatment facilities in Pennsylvania, Florida, and Texas, they have offices in Bermuda, Boston, New York, Philly, and D.C. You can reach them by calling 800-854-6023 or going to their website, caron.org. That's CARON.org. Trudge the Road is a radio program dedicated to people who suffer from the disease of addiction to drugs and alcohol. And every bit as important, family and friends. You suffer tremendously, and we know that you have question after question after question. Our goal is to do our best to answer some of those questions, and with the good grace of the Lord above, bring a solution to this incredible dilemma, the disease of addiction. This is part two with our guest. Our guest today is Allison, and told a remarkable story of what got her to the doors of recovery. Let me just, I think that it ends up this way for all of us at the end. We're just functioning off of those three emotions: elation, anxiety, and despair. I'm either so excited because I got what I want, or I'm getting anxious because I'm losing what I got, or I'm in complete despair because I don't have it. And that's that cycle. The only thing that will cure despair again is elation, and it just goes around and around and around and around. Each time tighter, with each time more tremendously difficult circumstances and consequences. And you have felt that. Now, just before you're going into treatment, tell us what you're feeling like, what's going through your head, and what you're trying to anticipate and hopefully solve.
Thank you again, Jerry. Honored to be able to be here and share my experience, strength, and hope. And so at that time, basically, in hindsight, I don't know what I was feeling. I can tell you I was feeling, I had opened this book they call The Big Book, and I'd started reading the stories. And what was really enthused me and excited me was the fact that they were telling my story. These people were telling my story, and I was like, oh my God, I'm not just insane. There's like a solution here. And that's what I felt. I felt that there might be something here for me. And so I did go off to rehab, and I got there, and they were asking me to do a lot of things. And I can tell you that I did some of them. I did do some of them. I really wanted to be on board. But being the alcoholic I am, it's like if I can find a shortcut or just a side cut or whatever, I took it. And the one area that I did not, I embraced to a certain extent was, having a relationship with a higher power. Because in rehab, that's pretty much, we talked about step 1, 2, and 3, and it's like I'm powerless over alcohol and pretty much everything in my life. In fact, everything in my life. And my life had become unmanageable. I mean, I couldn't put 2 and 2 together. I couldn't pick up a child who I bore from, the daycare center because, alcohol had become paramount. It was number one. There was nothing else. Nobody. And the people who suffered the most were those closest to me. And so in rehab, was my life unmanageable? Yeah, I could say, yeah, I can buy into that. And then could you come to believe that a power greater than you could restore you to sanity? I'm like, yeah, I got that one, And I was like, yeah, I thought I had a belief system in God. And you know what I did? I found out later what I didn't have was a relationship with that higher power. I could tell you I had a God, but you want me to talk to him in prayer and you want me to listen to him in meditation, that was another thing. And this is, again, hindsight. And step 3, decided to turn my will and my life over to a higher power. And I don't think I'm alone there. It's like, if you don't have a higher power that you really believe is awesome, you're just not going to turn your life and your will over. It's just not happening. And I was in that category. I thought I had made a deal with God, and I'd done what I'd done, and I'm going to just suck it up and live with it. And what I didn't realize at the time, that this isn't about patching up an old life, my friends. This is about having a brand new life. Like, I get to have that life, clean it up with the steps, and then have a brand new life. So I did a lot of right things. I really did. And during those years, during the time in rehab, I did a lot of the things I was told to do and really believed in my heart I was going to do them all when I got out. And I think anybody in rehab, most people, they want to do the right thing. But I wasn't done with my ideas. I had a couple back there in reservation. What I will tell you I did that was very positive and I believed saved me for 10 years before I relapsed was that I got involved. We had a alumni association. I headed up along with other alcoholics, the children's area. And so we had, we'd watch your children when you came to the meetings every month. I went to AA meetings every day. I went to an attitude adjustment in the AM, and that was just like, I'd leave there smiling. And I'm like, I don't even know what all this thing is, but I do know when I leave AA meetings, I'm smiling and I get something. So if you're one of those people that either has been here and opted out because of you didn't hear what you thought you should hear, I was told the direction I was given that I took is opt yourself in. Every time you think that you don't look like the other person, keep listening because there's a nugget in there. And usually what you see that you don't think you look like is usually exactly what you look like. That was another thing. So rehab was great. We had camaraderie and, you really got close. It's kind of like the Titanic story. You go out and you're in a ship and you're in the middle of the ocean and this thing sinks and now you're on a life raft with people. You will always have a relationship that's unique because you're just in deep trauma. I mean, we were all traumatized. We'd put ourselves through the traumas. And I know that you know what I'm saying when you wake up and you don't know who it is you're beside. You don't even know what you did and you're embarrassed because it's really not who you are. You were looking for love in all the wrong places. And you know what I'm saying when you're looking for your car and you have no idea what it is, where it is, and you're like, how could I have done this again? And I know you know what I'm saying when it's like you say, I said that I wouldn't do this morning, but I did it again. I'm drunk tonight, and that's the life. And so I was open to do a lot of things not to have that experience. And I was really blessed because I really did not want to drink. But not drinking is not the only part, is not the only thing here, is what I learned, is I needed a new life and a new way of thinking. And in order to, alcohol was my solution and drugs were my solution. I needed a new solution, and that's what rehab was trying to get through my head, is you need a higher power and you need a relationship. So in rehab, like I said, did a lot of the right things. And I remember sitting in the circle on the last day. And every time we'd kind of graduate someone out of the program, we'd all sit there in this circle. And there was an average of 50 people in this rehab. It was called Clare Center. It's now kind of converted into White Deer Run. They said 2 out of this group are going to survive this illness. And I'm like, it's going to be me, But there was also that despair of like, why is this like not happening where we're getting more people in recovery? So I kind of also was, the other part of me was like, yeah, whatever. I'm sure that we're going to be around. And literally within a few days of leaving, there was 3 people. 2 people were back in jail that in my group, and many had relapsed. And it was funny because after running into people, I got left out. I was in rehab, for those of you who might be feeling sorry for yourself or don't want to go in because, it's a holiday, it's this, it's that. I mean, trust me, I had every excuse, but I was in for Thanksgiving, I was in for Christmas. Of course, poor me. Not that I was even lucid during those dates, and usually I wasn't even with my family. It's like, I have to be with my family. Right. Well, it didn't seem too important all those other years. Right. But now that I'm in recovery, it is, right? And so I got out New Year's Day Eve, and I went to my mom's house, and I just love my mom. I am so glad that I was able to do a 4th step, a 5th step, and the rest of the steps to realize that my mom didn't make me an alcoholic. And whatever she did or anybody else does is not going to make me drink. I'm going to drink because I choose to drink. But that day I got out, and she said, honey, I am so glad you're all well now. Come sit up. We're going to have a drink for New Year's. I'm like, seriously, Mom? And I'll tell you what I did know. I knew enough. Rehab had given me enough to know that I needed to get in my car and leave. And that was really hard because I love my mom. She was my chief enabler, and she was going to give me what I loved, which was alcohol. But I do know I got enough of a spiritual experience in rehab and watching people and listening to them, and the beauty that you get by going to meetings and hearing people's stories saying, yeah, I get that. That was me. I got enough hope is really what we're talking about here, is we're selling hope. And because I was totally in despair, and that's what the illness had brought me to. So I got in my car and I left. And, for me, and it's not for everybody, I needed to, step away a little bit and really just work on the program. And I did. So I have a great life. Ironically, I look back at now, but I'll tell you what happened to me real quickly. About 2 weeks after being out of rehab, and I knew it, but I denied it at the time, I was pregnant. And it was just an affirmation from the doctor, but I was like 5 months pregnant. And you just couldn't tell. And I had a child. So I had a lot going on. And it was a matter of, I could have been a welfare mom. So easy. And I just decided that's one thing I wasn't going to do. And if you are, there's no shame in that. It was just a choice I made. I just said, I'm making a decision not to do that. And I interviewed for this part-time job 9 hours. No, I'm not exaggerating. This guy interviewed me 3 times for a part-time job. And how did I know God was working in my life then? I didn't. I thought, I was bringing in, because I had success in my career prior to that, and I brought in everything. And he finally hired me part-time. And, that part-time job, I had to, and a few weeks later, tell him I was pregnant and I'm going to have to quit. And he said, well, why would you quit? I said, well, you don't want a single mom. You'd be ashamed, right? Because I was ashamed. And he said, no. He said, that's fine. Stay, work. Do you feel healthy enough to do it? And I'm like, yeah. He said, stay and work. And then, well, remember I told you that I bought into some of the rules and some of the directions? And this is why you get a sponsor, because my best thinking is not that great at thinking. I'm self-centered. I want what I want, and I want it now. And if you're not like that, well, bully for you, but I'm an alcoholic, and that's what I want. And I don't even know what's good for me. So I decided, I had that DUI. Remember that detail I told you in the first part? Well, but I wasn't going to not drive, because I was in a Volvo, and cops wouldn't be looking for people in a Volvo because now I'm an upstanding citizen. And so what I didn't kind of figure out in that dynamic was, I was against the law. I was a criminal. I was driving under the influence. I could have killed people. And by the grace of God, I know people who have. And they're no different than me, my friends. My story just got different, but I didn't do anything different. And they're in jail for killing people. But the point is that I did have a DUI. And so I didn't count on also anybody hitting me. And that's what happened. I was driving into a parking lot, and I was hit head on. And by the grace of God, nobody in the car got hurt. And I'm trying to figure out, oh my gosh, I don't want to call the cops. And I'm still had ideas. And as long as you have ideas, I can tell you my experience is it doesn't work out really well usually. And so I had to go back and tell this boss that now I don't have a car. Now I can't get to work. And, he said, we'll send out a chauffeur to pick you up daily. And I'm like, okay. Like, I'm thinking, what a great person I am. Look how smart I am. I'm doing a great job here. And I still hadn't tapped into God was working in my life. So if you're thinking you're doing a great job, I don't know. You might want to take a look and see maybe higher power has something to do with this. Because as you listen to this story unfold, you got to know. Trust me, if I was in charge of it, it wouldn't have gotten done like this. I would have manipulated it into something that who knows. So then the guy who was picking me up said, I'm sick of doing this. And the guy said, well, tell you what. We're going to move Allison into this. I worked in apartments. We're moving Allison into this luxury apartment that's like literally I work downstairs and I live upstairs. Now, I had 3 years suspension by the time I got done with all my ideas because that driving into the suspension landed me another 1.5 years, and I was supposed to go to jail too. That's another God thing. So the net result is here I am, a recovering alcoholic. And I did, God does not make hard terms with those who seek him. I am living proof because I am arrogant. And I will try to figure this out. And I will tell you that I was the one who figured it out. And I got news for you. Humbling, getting honest with myself to say, hey, I am not in charge, has been the biggest gift. And so I lived on a property for 3 years, made more money than I ever should have. Had my kids went to a clubhouse, ate dinner, had an Olympic-sized swimming pool, tennis courts. They had the things I wanted my kids to have. And not so much things, but opportunities. And, I'm a single mom. And those things don't happen to single moms in many cases. It's harder for us. And I'm not being self-pity. It just is. You're head of household. You're trying to be a mom and you're juggling it. And I'm here to tell you, if you're in that situation, I'm going to give you hope. If you ask for help, you can do this. And you don't have to do it alone. And you don't have to do it with just handouts. You can do it and feel good about yourself and live like a woman in dignity and self-respect with your chin up, your eyes bright. I see so many women walk into these rooms with their eyes, they're like dark, they're almost black, and their heads are cast down, and they're so ashamed because they woke up with the guy that they had no idea who it was. They woke up with a guy who they were pregnant to who was never going to step up. And I just think, some of us are sicker than others, and I don't I don't blame the men I've been with. I did for a lot of years. I did that too. And you know what? I pray for them now. And I've forgiven myself and I've forgiven them. That is Alcoholics Anonymous and God, my friends. That is not me, because I want to hold you hostage forever. And I'm going to tell you something. Who I'm really holding hostage is myself. And it's taken a lot of willingness to have a relationship with a higher power to get to where I can even say those words. So I told you about that early recovery where all those things, how they kind of unraveled and unfolded in ways that I could not even, they say behind your wildest dreams, I'm like, whatever. When I got in here, and these people say, I'm a grateful recovered alcoholic, I'm like, good for you, sister, because that's not who I am. I am grateful. I mean, I've got so blessed to work with women where, I can see the color in their eyes come back. I can see their chins lift up. I see them getting work. And it's not exactly the top of the world. They might be working at Bob Evans. They might be working down at the Turkey Hill or the Wawa. But you know what? They take one step at a time. That's it. One and one and one and one. I had a sponsor. You say, Allison, you got all these plans. Let's just do one at a time. And let's see how they all unravel. And not unravel, but unfold, rather. And, things have happened that I can't even go into. We don't have enough time. But I will tell you this, is that I've had careers where I've been able to travel the world. I wanted to be healthy. Well, I ended up going to the gym consistently, getting my health back, getting my looks back, being healthy from the inside out and the outside in. So you can have it all. I believe you can. And, I'm 51 and I feel like I'm 25 physically. You know what? When I got in here, I felt like I was 50 and I was, I'll say it out loud, rode hard and put back wet. Not pretty, but that's really what it was. And so today, I can live in dignity, self-respect, and I make better decisions. And when I don't think I have a good idea, well, not that I don't think I check in with my sponsor more often than not. Let's just put it that way. Because usually my ideas, again.
It was our best thinking that got us here.
Yeah, it's like those emails. Today is texting and emailing. So it was funny. I was in India and there was a girl who was having a challenge in relationship. And I'm thinking, I'm not going to diagnose anybody, but it sounded like a lot. She said, I feel like I'm codependent. And I said, well, maybe you are. I don't know. But she was about to write this scathing email. I said, just read it out loud to me, And today I can listen and not have to give advice, because Alcoholics Anonymous is not about advice. I'm here to listen as a sponsor, and I'm not even her sponsor, but I could listen. I could say, well, let's think about how you're going to feel in the morning. I said, read that out loud. Do you want to hear yourself say those things? It was pretty dark. And later on that night, I bumped it and she said, thank you so much. I didn't send that email. And I said, so the text, the emails, all that, I always say, wait, just wait.
Good idea.
Anyways, I don't know if we're ready to wrap, but I could tell you, I've studied yoga in San Francisco. I've studied yoga in India. I've been blessed to do things, career-wise, spiritually. I was on a journey, and I got a chance to climb a mountain that was just, I met my maker on the mountain. It was kind of interesting because I set aside some things while I was there, and it's a journey. And that mountain made me realize, I was thinking, I'm going to get to the top. I'm going to get to the top. And it was straight up. I mean, we were sheer climbing. And I was like, I'm going to get to the top. And, it's funny. By the time I got to the top, it wasn't about getting to the top anymore. It was the journey and each moment when I had to stop, take some breaths, and just get present with myself. It's the journey. That's what I realized. So I invite you to the journey. It's not going to get all well in a day, but I will tell you, if you stick around, beyond your wildest dreams, and you will say it. I know I wasn't going to say it, and I have a sponsor, and my sponsor is a sponsor, and her sponsor is a sponsor, and I invite you to join me on this path, and I'm always free if you're interested in having a sponsor. I try to make myself available to any woman who wants to walk this path and do the steps.
A journey of epic proportion. You're certainly on one, and we're incredibly grateful for you sharing with us. And we hope that you'll come back, because there is so much more to know about you and about what you're doing and what you're offering, and the miracle that you continue to give other women in Alcoholics Anonymous and recovery. We appreciate it. That's Allison. She'll definitely be back. Trudge the Road is sponsored by Caron Treatment Centers. Caron is a nonprofit leading provider of drug and alcohol addiction treatment. Caron specializes in men's and women's services, as well as young adult males and females, plus a relapse program and outpatient services. If you're concerned about yourself or a loved one, here's a phone number to call. It's 800-854-6023, or go to their website, caron.org. That's CARON.org. All kinds of great information there for you. This is Trudge the Road. We'll be back with Rich here in just a moment on the Trudge the Road Radio Network.
You're listening to Trudge the Road. Coming up, Rich and Jerry put a wrap on this week's show. That's next on the Trudge the Road Radio Network.
There is a new face of recovery, and you see it in the pages of Renew Magazine and at RenewEveryday.com. Renew and RenewEveryday.com are changing the face of recovery for good. Each issue is filled with positive role models, life-affirming stories, encouragement, and ideas to help any life in recovery. Whether you're already enjoying an addiction-free life, have a loved one facing his challenges, or are considering recovery, Renew and RenewEveryday.com can support and inspire you. Join us. Check out RenewEveryday.com to learn more.
Hi, this is Rich, your co-host for the Trudge the Road radio program, and there's a question I get all the time, and that is, how do we catch prior episodes of Trudge the Road if we miss the radio show? And it's very simple. You just go to youtube.com and in the search engine, type in, without any spaces, Trudge the Road Radio, and all our shows will come up. We also invite you to like our Facebook page, which can be found by typing Trudge the Road Radio with spaces into the search engine. And thank you from Jerry and myself for listening to Trudge the Road.
Welcome back to Trudge the Road. Trudge the Road, sponsored by Caron Treatment Centers. Caron's a nonprofit leading provider of drug and alcohol addiction treatment with treatment facilities in Pennsylvania, Florida, Texas, offices in Bermuda, Boston, New York, Philadelphia, and Washington, D.C. They can be reached by calling 1-800-854-6023, or you can go to their website, caron.org. That's CARON.org. We're your hosts. I'm Rich, a recovered drug addict.
My name's Jerry. I'm a sober alcoholic.
And a big thank you to Allison for coming in and sharing her story.
Wow, it's powerful.
This morning. Yeah, very powerful stuff. I'll tell you something. Did you ask her a question, or
no.
Did she just...
I didn't have to. I had a whole list of them here, but which is the case every week. I come in here, prepared with questions, and it never happens. It's because I absolutely believe and understand, and I know that God takes over when He needs to here, and allows Himself to communicate through us. And I think that Allison is a perfect example of that, which just happened.
Yeah, fantastic story, and a fantastic person as well. And thank you so much, Allison, for coming in. Also, Jerry, big tip of the hat, a big big tip of the fez
tip
to
of the
you.
fez.
Yeah, for your story earlier, which had everybody in here
Donna in
rolling
Vegas.
on the floor. We'll just call it Donna in Vegas.
Donna in Vegas.
That's what we're going to call this whole episode. Hey, listen, you can catch all our episodes on YouTube. Just type Trudge the Road Radio into the search engine on YouTube, and boom, they'll all come up. We have a Facebook page, which, again, Trudge the Road Radio. Like us if you will. We have a Twitter feed, which is at TTR Show. And, of course, our website is trudgetheroadradio.com.
Hey, and don't forget, if when you're at a meeting for you folks in recovery, if they get to that point where they make the non-AA related announcements, if you would be kind enough as to recommend our show here, we would appreciate that immensely.
Yes, we would. And a big thank you to Caron Treatment Centers. They sponsor Trudge the Road. Caron, a nonprofit leading provider of drug and alcohol addiction treatment. Caron specializes in men's and women's services, as well as young adult males and females. Plus, they have a relapse program and outpatient services. If you're concerned about yourself or a loved one, call 1-800-854-6023, or you can go to their website, caron.org. That's CARON.org. Jerry, thank you very much.
Peace, brother.
Hey, tip of the fez to Matt, the producer,
Matt,
as
the
well.
producer.
I don't know what the fez thing is. It just is. And join us again next week right
We'll see
here
you then.
on this great radio station for Trudge the Road Radio.
You've been listening to Trudge the Road. If you'd like to catch prior episodes, you can visit our website, trudgetheroadradio.com, and keep listening for new episodes on this great radio station, which is part of the Trudge the Road Radio Network.
Thank you for listening to Trudge the Road. The opinions expressed in the show are those of myself, Jerry, my co-host, Rich, and our guests, and not necessarily those of the Caron Treatment Centers. For more information regarding the show, go to our website, trudgetheroadradio.com. There is a new phase of recovery, and you see it in the pages of Renew Magazine and at RenewEveryday.com. Renew and RenewEveryday.com are changing the face of recovery for good. Each issue is filled with positive role models, life-affirming stories, encouragement, and ideas to help any life in recovery. Whether you're already enjoying an addiction-free life, have a loved one facing his challenges, or are considering recovery, Renew and RenewEveryday.com can support and inspire you. Join us. Check out RenewEveryday.com to learn more.
Hi, this is Rich, your co-host for the Trudge the Road radio program, and there's a question I get all the time, and that is, how do we catch prior episodes of Trudge the Road if we miss the radio show? And it's very simple. You just go to youtube.com and in the search engine, type in, without any spaces, Trudge the Road Radio, and all our shows will come up. We also invite you to like our Facebook page, which can be found by typing Trudge the Road Radio with spaces into the search engine. And thank you from Jerry and myself for listening to Trudge the Road.